The boy's voice was soft, almost lost in the noise of clattering plates and quiet conversations, but it cut through the room like a crack in glass. In a place where people avoided eye contact and kept their lives carefully contained, his words made everything pause. His small hand pointed toward the corner, where a woman sat alone, her clothes worn, her eyes distant, her presence almost invisible. And then he asked the question that no one else dared to ask, the question that would change everything in that room and beyond. "Dad, can she eat with us?" Before we begin this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small actions to change lives, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Tales. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. The restaurant was modest but warm, filled with the glow of late afternoon sunlight pouring through the glass windows. Outside, the world moved quickly, but inside, everything felt slower, quieter, almost suspended. Arman Malik sat at a table near the center, his posture slightly hunched, his eyes tired but gentle. Across from him sat his 7-year-old son, Zion, whose curiosity often made him notice things others chose to ignore. Arman had learned over the years that raising a child alone meant carrying both strength and vulnerability at the same time, and he did his best every day to balance the two. Life had not been kind to Arman. After losing his wife in a sudden illness 3 years earlier, he found himself navigating a world that suddenly felt heavier. Every decision, every responsibility, every emotion had doubled. He had no luxury to fall apart because a small pair of eyes depended on him. So he worked long hours, saved carefully, and tried to give Zion a life filled with as much warmth as possible, even when his own heart felt cold and empty. That afternoon, they had come to the restaurant as a small celebration. Zion had done well in school, and Arman wanted to reward him with something simple yet meaningful. It was one of those rare days when Arman allowed himself to breathe, to sit back and watch his son smile without worrying about tomorrow. But life has a strange way of placing unexpected moments in the middle of ordinary days, moments that test who we really are. In the far corner of the restaurant sat the woman. Most people pretended she wasn't there. Some glanced briefly, then quickly looked away, as if acknowledging her existence might somehow disturb their comfort. Her hair was unkempt, her face pale, and her clothes carried the weight of many sleepless nights. She sat still, not asking for anything, not speaking, just existing in a space that clearly did not welcome her. Zion had noticed her the moment they walked in. Children often see what adults train themselves to overlook. He watched her quietly at first, his small mind trying to understand why someone would sit alone like that, why no one spoke to her, why she looked so tired. And then, unable to contain his thoughts any longer, he asked the question that echoed across the table. Arman followed his son's gaze and saw her. For a moment, his chest tightened. He had seen people like her before, on streets, near markets, outside offices. He had learned to look away, not out of cruelty, but out of habit, out of the belief that he could not fix everything. Life had taught him limits. But Zion's question lingered in the air, heavy and persistent. It wasn't just a question. It was a challenge. It was innocence confronting reality, asking why kindness should have boundaries. Arman felt something shift inside him. He looked at his son, then back at the woman. Memories flooded his mind, moments when he himself had felt lost after his wife's passing, moments when a single kind gesture from a stranger had kept him going. He remembered how even the smallest act of compassion could feel like a lifeline. Without saying anything, Arman slowly stood up. The movement caught the attention of a few nearby tables. People watched, curious, uncertain. He walked toward the corner where the woman sat, each step carrying a quiet determination. His heart beat faster, not out of fear, but out of the weight of what he was about to do. When he reached her, he paused for a brief second, then gently spoke. His voice was calm, respectful, and warm. He did not ask questions that would make her feel small. He did not offer pity. Instead, he offered something far more powerful, dignity. He invited her to join them, to sit at their table, to share a meal like any other person in that room. The woman looked up, her eyes filled with disbelief. It was as if she had forgotten what it felt like to be seen, truly seen. For a moment, she hesitated, unsure if this was real or just another passing illusion. But something in Armin's expression reassured her. Slowly, she nodded. When she walked back to the table with him, the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted. Conversations softened, glances turned into stares, and an unspoken tension filled the space. Zion smiled brightly, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. He made space for her, his small gesture carrying a weight far beyond his years. They sat together, three people from completely different worlds, sharing a moment that felt both simple and extraordinary. The food arrived, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the woman ate without fear, without shame. Armin and Zion spoke to her gently, not forcing conversation, but allowing her to open up at her own pace. Her name was Meher. Her story, like many others, was a painful blend of loss, betrayal, and misfortune. She had once had a home, a family, dreams that felt within reach. But life had taken unexpected turns, leaving her alone, struggling to survive each day. She had learned to expect nothing from the world, to rely only on herself, to accept that kindness was rare and fleeting. But that afternoon changed something inside her. It reminded her that even in a world that often turns its back, there are still people who choose to care. As the meal continued, the tension in the restaurant slowly faded. Some people returned to their conversations, while others continued to watch, perhaps questioning their own choices, their own boundaries. Armin did not seek attention. He did not act for recognition. He simply did what felt right. For Zion, the moment became a quiet lesson, one that would stay with him for the rest of his life. He learned that kindness is not about convenience, that it often requires courage, and that even a small action can create a ripple far beyond what we can see. Time seemed to slow as the afternoon light began to soften. The simple act of sharing a meal had turned into something far more meaningful. It had created a connection, a reminder that humanity is not defined by circumstances, but by the choices we make. Before they left, Armin did something else unexpected. He offered Meher help, not as charity, but as an opportunity. He connected her with someone he knew, someone who could help her find work, a place to stay, a chance to rebuild her life. It wasn't a complete solution, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, a beginning is all someone needs. As they walked out of the restaurant, Zion held his father's hand a little tighter. There was a quiet pride in his eyes, a sense of understanding that went beyond his years. Armin looked down at him and smiled, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of purpose that extended beyond survival. The world outside continued as usual, unaware of the small miracle that had just taken place. But for those three people, everything had changed. Now, before we reach the end of this story, if this moment touched your heart, take a second to like, comment, and share this video. Stories like these remind us of the good that still exists in the world, and your engagement helps spread that message further. And here's a special request: comment below with one kind act you've done or witnessed. Your story might inspire someone else to make a difference. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange, Armin realized that sometimes, the most unexpected moments carry the greatest impact. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic changes. It was about choosing kindness when it would be easier to look away. Meher stood at the edge of the street, watching them leave, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and hope. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, valued, and reminded that her story wasn't over yet. And somewhere in the quiet rhythm of that day, a simple question from a child had created a ripple that would continue to spread, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted. Because sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one decision, one act of courage to remind the world what it means to be human.